Welcome to DeFi Now. I'm Josh Cross, and with me as always, my trusty sidekick, Steve Irwin. High five, Irwin. Now, today we're going to discuss why we need Bitcoin and why it is so important. The US dollar has lost over 85% of its value since 1971 when we went off the gold standard. Now, what that means is if you have US dollars and something that cost $1,000 back then is now going to cost over $6,500 today. The reason why is because now we can just print as much money as we want. It's not tied to gold. So previously it all had to be backed by gold. Then we went to a fractional reserve where some of it has to be backed by gold. And then in 1971, we went off of it completely. And that's when the money printer really started going bananas. Now, this isn't just a problem in the US. This is a problem with every central bank in the world, is that the heads of the central banks, they don't make very good decisions when it comes to monetary policy, and they get put in positions where the only way that they can fix it is by printing more money over and over. Now, there are some really famous examples of this, such as Venezuela and Zimbabwe. Those are the really popular ones because those were really extreme examples. In Zimbabwe, they were printing $100 trillion notes, which is just crazy. And this is something that's going to continue happening over and over and over as it has, as long as we have a centralized monetary system. So the solution that we need is something that is a decentralized monetary system. And up until the beginning of 2009, we didn't have that. But that is when Bitcoin was created, and that is why it is so important, because now we have a decentralized solution. We have a monetary system that's completely digital and nobody controls. And when you think about it, there's really no better solution to this problem than to have something that is digitally scarce, cannot be copied, it is decentralized, it is open, it is neutral, anybody can access it. You cannot deny somebody access to it if they have access to the internet. This is so mind-bogglingly powerful for the average person, you know. Now if you have a cell phone, if you have access to internet and you can have a smartphone, you have a bank account. Nobody can stop you from using it. It's neutral, it's decentralized, it's open, it's censorship resistant. Now anybody with a cell phone can send money to anybody else that they want to in the world, and nobody can stop it. Then the question is asked, you know, how is this is gonna help fund terrorism? This is gonna help with money laundering and all these things. First of all, if you want to see who's the largest money launderers in the world, go look at the banks, because those are the largest. Go look at HSBC Bank in Hong Kong, because those are the largest money launderers in the world. Now, it's important to understand how technologies are adopted also, because when it comes to technology adoption, criminals and people who are trying to stay one step ahead of law enforcement are going to be among the first people to adopt it. Just like the internet. When the internet was new, they said the same thing. They said that the internet is dirty. It's full of pornographers. It's full of drug dealers and criminals and all that. The number one use case for the internet is adult film. It still is. But we don't seriously consider turning off the internet because the value that is created makes it ridiculous to try and turn it off. And the same thing could be said for Bitcoin, and it's really important to understand that. And like the internet, Bitcoin is enormous. It's so, the application here is incredible. It's not just money on the internet, it's the internet of money. We have the internet of information, which is the internet that we use, and now we have the internet of money. Now here in the US, over the previous weeks, because of the pandemic and the economic downturn, we're in a position where the Federal Reserve has printed over $10 trillion to try and make up for this. And the problem with that is they keep printing more and more, and it's going to have a diminishing return effect where they want to boost the economy by a certain amount. They have to print, 10 trillion now. In the future, they're going to have to print tens of trillions to make up for it. And you have this cascading effect where it kind of goes off of a cliff and they just have to print it into oblivion. Now, in direct contrast to this, we have Bitcoin, something that is decentralized, something that nobody can control. It is a global network of computers all mining and validating transactions together. And this is huge. And the thing about Bitcoin is that it is very difficult to change the monetary policy because you have to convince more than half of the people using it to make a change. So it's very slow to even make developmental changes. This is a feature of it because if you have digital gold, you don't want it to be having all kinds of new features coming out and changing all the time. So when it was created, it was specifically created to be very difficult to change. For instance, there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins ever mined in existence. Right now, we have over 18 million that have been mined. So over 85% of all Bitcoins that will ever exist are already in existence. And on top of that, a lot of people, especially in the early days, did not properly take care of the private keys that control their Bitcoin, and so it's estimated that anywhere between 4 and 5 million Bitcoins have already been lost, and they're just gone forever, never going to be created again. And the reason this is important is because there is a finite supply. You cannot have value in something such as the US dollar that has an infinite supply. And the Federal Reserve Chairman recently stated that there is an infinite supply of money that they can print. And this should be hugely worrying to everybody. This is crazy. You cannot just print an infinite supply of something and expect it to still have value. So then the question comes is, if there's only going to be, 16 or so million Bitcoins that are going to be in circulation, then how is there enough for everybody? And that's a really important question. Thank you for asking. Now, one Bitcoin can be broken into 100 million pieces. So that's a zero with, let's see, 100 million. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 zeros, right? So one Bitcoin can be broken into 100 million pieces. These are called Satoshis, and they're named after the founder of Bitcoin, the pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto. So right now we're talking about trading whole Bitcoins, even though one Bitcoin is about $7,500 at the time of recording, but you can break it into 100 million pieces. So you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction of a cent of a Bitcoin. And this is really important to understand, because there will always be enough for everybody while there's still a finite supply, because you can break it into such a small piece. So if I wanted to buy 1 penny of Bitcoin, I could. I wouldn't, but I could. All right, I'm going to bring this video to a close. Thank you for joining me. If you learned anything, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button down below. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button and click the bell so that you get notified when I release a new video. If you didn't like the video, let me know why. Leave a comment below. Next week, we're going to discuss how Bitcoin works, how the Bitcoin network works, how the miners fit together with the different wallets and that kind of thing. And we'll go do a really broad overview of the whole ecosystem. So make sure you don't miss out on that, and we'll see you next week.